Greetings, everyone. Oh, this is kind of weird. I thought I'd switch things up a little bit and put the stand here and me here, and I keep wanting to look over there. Anyway, welcome to the long-awaited first official part of my Doctor Who DVD Disambiguation. Yes, we're actually going to go right back to the beginning today, to the 1963-1964 season, which kicked off the legend. Yes, the very first Doctor, William Hartnell. This is where it all began. So let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it and see which DVDs make up the very first season of the 50 years and still going strong series, Doctor Who. Today on the Multimedia Chronicles. Welcome back. Okay, so we're going to try to keep these kind of short and sweet because I imagine a lot of you are just going to want these to be a quick reference. To make it even easier for you, I'm actually going to include a list in the description of all of the individual DVDs that we talk about in this episode. In addition to that, you will find Amazon links as well if you'd like to buy them. I do get a small kickback for that, so thank you very much for your support. Specifically the Region 1 versions. I can't sell you the Region 2 versions because I don't live in Region 2 land, but I'm sure if you're in Region 2 land, they're not too hard to find. I mean, Doctor Who's a national institution over there, so it's got to be available everywhere. Alrighty, so starting at the beginning, we have The Beginning. Yes, this is actually the 2013 re-release version of The Beginning. Just to give you a little idea, it was originally released in Region 1 land. In this set here, it was a 2 keep case box set. The first one I think had 1 disc and the second one had 2 discs. So anyway, this is the re-release version, which actually mirrors the original Region 2 cover art. I think this cover art is a lot nicer. I actually used to have the original release back in the day, but it went out of print right around the same time I was looking to collect all of the Doctor Who DVDs and was going for crazy prices. And I was like, really? They're going to put a bunch of them out of print during the 50th anniversary year? Really? That makes sense. But fortunately, a re-release was just around the corner, and this quietly appeared on Amazon about a month later, and I managed to snag it. So this is The Beginning. And what we have on here is stories 1, 2, and 3. I should show you. The Region 1 releases actually number the stories right on the back. So if you're ever confused about where a particular DVD goes in the continuity, just look at the numbering on the back and it'll tell you exactly what story number it is. So here we have stories 1, 2, and 3, and I should also mention we also have a condensed reconstruction of the sadly missing story number 4. So the 3 stories in question, we have An Unearthly Child, The Daleks, and The Edge of Destruction. And the missing story is Marco Polo. So the good news about Season 1 is it's actually mostly intact. Now, as I mentioned in the prologue episode, there's around 100 or so episodes of the early seasons that have since been lost and no longer exist in the BBC archives. So, sadly, that means a lot of the early seasons are incomplete, which is where I'm hoping you'll find this disambiguation comes in handy. So the first of the missing serials is Marco Polo, which was a 7-part adventure. And then there's a couple episodes later in the season which are missing as well, but we'll talk about those in just a minute. So essentially, you have stories 1, 2, and 3 complete, and a very heavily condensed reconstruction of the 4th story, which runs about a half hour. The original story was 7 episodes, so it would have been like 2.5 hours easy, almost 3. But they've crunched it down using existing photographs and such. And also, as I mentioned in the prologue, the audio tracks exist for all the missing episodes. So it is all, they have all the original audio tracks, so you can at least enjoy them in audio form. Which brings me to the following. If you want to be really complete, get this, and then get this. Yes, the official BBC audio CD release of the complete audio of all 7 episodes of Marco Polo. So the cool thing about this CD is not only does it include the complete, uncut, fully remastered and restored audio of all 7 parts of the missing story, but it also features bridging narration by Ian Chesterton himself, William Russell. Yes, Ian Chesterton, of course, being one of the very first companions to travel with the Doctor, a school teacher, who you meet in the very first episode. And sadly, one of the few actors from that era who still survives. But the great thing about William Russell is he's always been very happy to remain active with Doctor Who and whatnot. So you'll find that a lot of the audiobooks and whatnot that have come out over the years from that era actually feature him doing the narration and such. And he's quite a good narrator too, might I add. So anyway, he does bridging narration to kind of explain the action when it's not particularly clear from the dialogue and sound effects and whatnot what's going on. So there you go. So it kind of plays out like a radio play. You're going to see me mention these audio CDs quite a bit over the course of this disambiguation because, as I mentioned in the prologue, I want it to be as complete as possible. And if you're looking to get the absolute 100% complete story of the early days of Doctor Who, you're obviously going to want to include those in your collection. And, of course, speaking of out of print, I think a lot of them are currently out of print. So good luck finding them. Expect to pay a pretty penny for some of them. But if you're a completist, you'll obviously want those in your collection. Okay, so that's it for the first 4 stories. So in terms of the DVDs, this is all that you want. You get the beginning with the first 3 complete stories and the condensed reconstruction of the 4th. Then we have story number 5, The Keys of Marinus, which is a good old-fashioned sci-fi adventure. This reminds me a lot of the old Flash Gordon serials. Basically, they're looking for several keys to unlock this machine, and there's a fly in here. And they travel to all these different kinds of places. So it's a fun, fast-paced adventure story that I've always enjoyed. Then we have the next historical adventure, which is the Aztecs, where they actually go back to Aztec times. And this is a notable story because it's one of the first big ones where they sort of talk about the consequences of tampering with history or trying to tamper with history when you're traveling through time. A lot of fun. I've always really liked that one a lot. So this is the special edition version, which actually just came out. It's actually a 2-disc special edition, and this is story number 6, by the way. So you get 1, 2, 3, most of 4, 5, and 6. Okay, following so far. The original edition was a single disc release, and if you want to see what that looks like, there you go. That's the original release right there. Okay, so carrying on with story number 7, we have the Sensorites. Now, this one gets kind of mixed reviews from fans. I always liked it. I don't know. I think it has some cool, creepy moments, and the Sensorites themselves are kind of creepy looking. It's a 6-part story. Some people find it a little bit slow, but whatever. I always enjoyed it. So we have the Sensorites, story number 7. And then finally, to top off the season, we have the epic 6-part historical adventure, The Reign of Terror, which takes place during the French Revolution. So you actually have the Doctor and his companions meeting up with Napoleon in this. Is pretty cool. Now, I should mention, this is the other story where there's a couple episodes missing, but they've done something really interesting with this. They did this a while back with one of the second Doctor's stories, which I'll talk about when we get to it. So this, I believe, was only the second time they had done this, and apparently they're doing this with a bunch of the other missing episodes as well, like stories where there's only 1 or 2 missing episodes. But what they did was they took the complete uncut audio track, which, as I say, exists for all the missing episodes, and animated it. So they did basically a cartoon of the 2 missing episodes in full animation, which is a pretty cool way to bring those episodes back to life. So now, thanks to the 2 animated episodes, we actually have the complete story available on DVD for the very first time. So let's just rearrange things a little bit here to get them more kind of in happy order. One thing you may notice also is the early seasons were a lot longer than the later seasons. Now, throughout the 70s and 80s, most seasons of Doctor Who were around 26 episodes. Now, back in the early days, they would do it almost like live TV, the way they would film it. They'd film everything in sequence, more or less, and they didn't have a lot of time for retakes and such, so a lot of the mistakes and whatnot would make it on air. So it's kind of fun spotting flubbed lines and whatnot. But they would work for 48 of the 52 weeks of the year, and it was just crazy how much these guys would work, and it's amazing how much content they were able to pump out during that period. And their budget, you want to talk about low budget, and people always joke about the old Doctor Who's being low budget. You have no idea. When they were doing the first season, they were allocated literally £2,000 per episode. How could they pay anybody with that, let alone have anything left over for costumes and sets and special effects and stuff? It's just crazy. Like, I mean, it's just unheard of how little money they got to do this. And when you watch these old episodes and see just how much they were able to do with that meager allowance of funds, it's really quite amazing, actually. Now, if you're going into the early Doctor Who's expecting it to be all fast-paced and slick like the current series, you're going to be disappointed because, I mean, bear in mind, this was 50 years ago. TV was not made the same way then as it is now. I mean, nowadays, obviously, you have computers and nonlinear editing and stuff, and you're able to crank out much higher quality for, comparatively little money. Back then, it was, you didn't even have portable cameras to go outside. You had to, they would shoot everything in the studio using these big old clunky studio cameras, and then to film outside, they would have to get portable film cameras and then piece it all together in the editing. It was a completely different way of making television. So the pacing is a lot slower and more leisurely. The stories aren't, I mean, there are fast-paced stories, obviously. There's some really good ones. The action is more confined. It's not as sort of, location spanning as it is in the newer series, and not as slick and fast-paced. But that said, there's some great stories, some very creative stuff here. And if you're looking to go right back to the beginning, well, as I say, most of the first season is intact. The only story that we're missing is Marco Polo. So they intended to do 52 episodes a season, but it didn't always work out that way for whatever reason. I mean, it's hard to crank out that number of episodes. So the first season, you actually have 42 individual episodes spread over the course of 8 stories. So the first story was a 4-parter. The second story was a 7-parter. The third story was a 2-parter, actually, just a small one. Also interesting in that it takes place entirely on the TARDIS with nobody but the central crew. And the phone is ringing. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. It's been a while since we've been interrupted by the phone, eh? Yeah, so the long and the short of it is, if you don't mind older style television, the beginning here might be an okay jumping on point for you. But if you're more inclined to prefer the newer style of the way television is made, you might find the really old episodes here a little bit hard to get into. It's entirely up to you. Myself, I love them. I've watched all of these like more times than I can even hazard a guess at. I just love the old episodes, and to me, it's just a nostalgia trip, looking back in time at the way things used to be. Plus, I mean, I've always been fascinated by television and film production to begin with. So going back to something like this and seeing how it was made back then is really fascinating to me, and seeing just how compelling the stories are and how superb the acting is. I mean, the core team of William Hartnell as the Doctor, William Russell as Ian Chesterton, Jacqueline Hill as Barbara, and Carol Ann Ford as Susan is just great. I mean, it's such a great ensemble cast, and it has a combined feel of almost like a stage play and the old Flash Gordon movie serials, which, if you watch my videos for a while, you'll know that I adore those old serials. So I just love that old school flavor. Anyway, that is it for Season 1. So if you get these 5 DVDs, you've got all the DVDs that are available. Don't mind that there's a gap between these two. You've got most of the story here. And if you want to be really complete, track down the CD of story number 4, and you will have Season 1 complete. Alrighty, that is it for Part 1 of the epic Doctor Who DVD Disambiguation. Only 25 parts to go for the classic series, and then we'll dive into the new series. It's going to be a while. Alrighty, that is it from me to you for now, so until next time, thanks for watching, and sayonara. Welcome back. Okay, so I'm going to try to keep these sort of short and sweet. Short? Yeah.